Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 2020. Woohoo! That was a very interesting year globally. But tonight we're talking about the census secrets, hidden clues, and population records. And our question for you tonight is, have you ever found something surprising or unusual in an old census record, maybe a strange occupation, a missing family member, or even a name change? Yes, I can tell you about name changes. Yes, I can. I can tell you when they happen too. Let's see, where am I? I've got to go to my list. So, why census records are important? They provide more than just names and dates. They can outline things like what an occupation is, how many people they have working for them, and it depends on which year. And the census report changes every single time. They're usually held every 10 years. For here in the US, they have the federal census on the years ending in 0. In England, they have them on the years ending in 1. And some states like New York and California, and I think it was Kentucky was the other one, maybe missing some other few, would have a census on the years ending in 5. I don't know if they still have those those ones ending on the years in 5, but they used to. And they reveal quite interesting things, because then you could look at the federal census on the 0s, then look at like New York census on the 5s and see if there were any differences just in those 5 years. And the cool part about having the censuses on the 5s is that you were picking up stuff that happened within that 10-year span between the federal census. So you might have had a couple that got married in 1872, but they don't show up on the 1870 census, and then you get to the 1880 census and they're not listed on there either. So maybe that 5-year one in between for New York State might explain what happened, or might show something different in there for that family. So you never know. But census records have been around for centuries. And did you know that some of the earlier ones recorded unusual details, like the number of beehives a family owned? I tell you, going back through some of the census reports, the ones that are available online, you find some really cool stuff in there. Like, let's have a look at some of the strange occupations. Some census records listed odd jobs like a leech collector in the 1800s in England. They had leech collectors, and then people that would actually go out and collect the leeches, because the doctors would use them if they had wounds that needed tending to. They'll put the leeches on there. The leeches were very good at eating away the dead skin, if there's any dead skin there, and helping to stop the bleeding. Then you had the town crier. The town crier was somebody who would walk around and going, "Hear ye," and they'd usually be ringing a bell, "Hear ye, hear ye," and they'll be announcing out what the headlines were of the news for that day. Then you had a chicken chaser. My only guess on this one, because I came across and I thought, well, that's kind of fun, but I haven't had time to go and look it up. My only thing of chicken chaser is they actually chase chickens. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm going to have to go look that one up. Household oddities. Some census recorded unusual details, including the number of livestock owned, like pigs, cows, and even bees. Who in the house was blind, deaf, or insane? That's on the US 1880 census and the UK census as well. Some census even asked how many idiots lived in the household. It is now an outdated term. I'm wondering if the idiot, I'm not even going to go there and try and figure that one out. I haven't had a lot of time to prepare for tonight. I've just been writing things down as I've been finding them today. Census taker mistakes and spelling errors. Yes, these will come up. People with last names like Smith may sometimes appear as Smythe, as S-M-Y-T-H, or S-M-I-T-H-E. It depends on whether or not the people in the house could spell, and when they said their name to the enumerator, how they heard it and wrote it down. If an ancestor had an accent, or their name could be written phonetically, and like something like O'Brien, which is O''B-R-I-E-N, became O'Brien, O-B-R-Y-A-N. So when you're looking through census reports, think about your family's name, and if you can't find them under the regular spelling, then you're going to have to come up with different ways and see what other spellings that can come up. But here's a cool thing. If you know that somebody who, like the name of a neighbor or the name of a relative that will live close to those people, you can go find them on the census reports, and then you've only got to go back a few pages either way to see if you can find the ancestors that you're looking for. And this is why it's important to know who are the siblings, who are the cousins, and it's, to go wide. Instead of just going straight up, remember to go wide, because when you go wide, you can use some of those people's names to help locate people on census reports, especially if you know that they lived in the same area around the same thing. You can go back through the census reports and see if you can find your family there under a different spelling. Instead of trying to guess the different spellings, just go look for them that way. A fun fact, some people intentionally lied on the census. Intentionally. In 1901, an Irishman listed his pet dog as his son just to mess with the census takers. True story. So if you happen to be looking for this particular Irish family and they seem to have an extra son, it could be it was a dog. I tell you. And then some people unintentionally lied because they couldn't remember their birthday. They couldn't remember the year they were born. They couldn't remember how old they were. Plus, also, it depended on who was giving the information to the enumerator. Was it somebody who actually lived in the house, who actually was like the head of the house, or some part of the family member, or was it a next door neighbor because the house members were out, so the next door neighbor gave them the information? Who is giving the information to the enumerator? So they may not have the... Oh, yeah, they've got a kid. They've got a son. His name's William. He's about, I think he's about 6 when he's actually 4. So you're going to find errors like that that'll be in there. It's based on who was giving the information. And then how do you analyze changes across multiple years? You can track family movements. Did they move from rural to urban areas for work? Did their state or country of birth change, suggesting like an immigration pattern? Look for expanding or shrinking households. Did they gain children or lose family members between census years? Did elderly parents or new in-laws suddenly appear in the household? It could be that they decided to take their elderly parents in to look after them because they were getting on in years. They couldn't look after themselves anymore. It could be a couple just got married. They may have had the in-laws visiting. They may have had siblings. You also find siblings there as well. They may have had siblings visiting, or grandchildren were visiting. Always look down, and I think it was 1850 or 1860, where they started putting the relationship to the head of the house. Now, what you have to watch with the relationship to the head of the house, you can have the husband could be the head of the house, and he's got his wife listed, and then there's children listed. Those children will be listed as whether or not they are sons or daughter to the head of the house, not to the wife, unless the wife is the head of the house. So you can't automatically assume that the wife listed there is the mother of these children, unless you have backup like parish records, baptismal records, birth certificates, anything else that can verify that, yes, these children listed are actually the children of the wife. It could be that these children were born to a first wife. The wife listed on the census report is now the second wife. So you have to look for that too. Does the wife's name change if you are pretty certain that this is the same person? And then they are listed, the wife's listed there. So who do these children belong to? Do they belong to the first marriage or the second marriage? You've got to be aware of those things. And in gaining children or losing family members between census years, it could be family members have died, or it could be that some children have gotten old enough where they are now married and have set their own household set up, or they're off on some other adventure. They're doing an apprenticeship somewhere. They could be off at boarding school. There's all sorts of things as to why children are no longer in that household. They could be visiting the grandparents or an aunt or uncle. Look for changes in occupation and financial status. Did someone go from being a farmer to a factory worker? Did a widow appear, suggesting the husband passed away between the census? Because there is a marital status column that would have an S in there for single, M for married, and W for widow. And very rarely you will see a D for divorce. In some areas where the woman was divorced, she would move to a completely different area and put down that she was a widow, because widows were treated better than divorcees. So you've got to look at that as well. you might say, well, hang on, the husband's back there. He's got a couple of kids staying with. Where are the other kids? And then you find her in another county somewhere, because somehow in your past you've found something that said that she moved, or you find that she moved and that she's staying with a couple of kids, and it's got a W, and you're going, but hang on, he's alive back there. They got divorced. Keep that in mind. Clues in neighboring communities. Are there extended family members living nearby? Did they move into a neighborhood of the same ethnic background? Always look at the houses around the one your relatives live in. Look to see who lived on this. In Ancestry, you can actually click a button to see who lived on the same street, and everybody will be listed there. Maybe you will find relatives. They may have been daughters who are married and are living nearby. It could be sons have now moved and they're married, and there's their family there in the last 10 years. They've got a couple of little kiddies there. It could be siblings that are living in the neighborhood. So always have a look at the neighborhood to see who else is in there. If a family disappears from a census, check if they moved in with relatives. Like widowed daughters often return to their parents' homes, or they moved out of the area completely for, as we just discussed, they got divorced, so they moved to somewhere completely different and said that they were a widow in order to have a better status than a divorcee. Let's see, we've now got some tips for finding missing ancestors. Use wildcard searches and name variations. So if John Williamson isn't showing up under Williamson, just try the last name Williams, Williamson, Wilson with one L, Wilson with two L's. Use wildcards such as an asterisk. Asterisk will look for multiple letters. A question mark will look for a single letter. So you can use those in the search fields as well. Search for first name only plus the location. If their last name is unclear, search for just the first name and a place. Now, this can be difficult when you've got a Mary, a John, a James, a William, a George, a Thomas, an Elizabeth, a Sarah, a Rebecca. Those are some of the most common first names. But if you can put, like, if you know around the time that they were born, if you know what location they were in, and you put their first name, you might actually find them, because somehow it may have been the transcription may have been misread, which happened. Well, that's actually the next topic. Sometimes digital transcriptions are wrong, but always go back and look at the original image. There have been times I have come across names which is very, very clear as to who they are and what the spelling is, but for some reason, the person doing the transcription either read it incorrectly, or the system read it and the person doing the transcription went, yep, that's correct, and without going back and looking. Look at nearby households. Extended families often live next door. Your missing ancestor may be listed under a relative's house. Consider census gaps and missing records. So the 1890 US Census was destroyed, so use city directories or tax records instead. Also, too, if you were in like New York or California or Kentucky, look for those census reports that ended in the year 5. If an ancestor is missing, check church records, tax lists, land deeds from that time period. Also, probate records, if they may have passed away. You know, they might have been 80 at the last census, so maybe on this one they may have passed away between there and then. Look at city directories, those sorts of things as well. They may provide a clue. So those are just some of the things that you can look at. But census records hold so much than just names and dates. They tell a story of your ancestors in that period of time, in that time capsule. Look up an ancestor in at least 3 different census years and see what changes you can find. Also look too, what questions have changed, because as they came on in different years, they changed some of the questions. Like in 1910, they asked the wife, how many children have you had? How many children did you give birth to, and how many are still alive? Because she might have 3 children. There might be 3 children on the census report, and it says that she had 6 children, but only 3 are living. Are they those 3? Or were they from his first marriage and her 3 are somewhere else, or are those 3 from her first marriage? You know, although it would be listed as stepson or stepdaughter if that was from her first marriage in order to with the head of the house. Hopefully. But you can find some very interesting details on there. You know, look, have they changed occupation? Are they still in the same street? Are they still at the same place where they used to live? Maybe the county lines have changed, so they are still in the same house in the same town, but the county lines changed, so they've gone from being in this county to now being in this county over here because they moved the line. It could be that they sold some land during that time. It could be that they've had relatives move into the house with them. It could be that they were off visiting. Yes, there's all sorts of reasons. So I want to challenge you to go look up an ancestor on at least 3 different census years and see what changes you can find. One will be in the questions that were asked, and besides their age and has their marital status changed? Are they living at a different address? Has their occupation changed? Their age and estimated year of birth may be different because they may give different numbers to the enumerator depending on who's reporting it. So census records aren't just about history, they're about family. You can find other family members living close by, and now you can expand your tree that way too. Make sure that you prove it and that you verify it first. And they connect us to the lives of those who came before us. And so with that, we are done for the evening. So so what did I say? My question, I'm going to go over here. The question was, have you ever found something surprising or unusual in an old census record? Maybe a strange occupation, a missing family member, or even a name change. Well, that reminds me. I haven't gone and looked up the name change for the Brahms. You have to go back and do that. Yeah, I should be able to look that one up now. Anyway, with that, I'm out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we will catch you guys back here. Let me double check my calendar. Yep, tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Hey, did I say have a super fantastic, sparkling evening? Have a double one. Have a double super fantastic, sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here